Everybody, I want to welcome you to Pulaski County Fiscal Court. We always like to open our court meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and today I've asked our faithful newspaper reporter, Janie Slavin, if she would be so kind as to open us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Janie. We had called this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from our previous meeting. You all received a copy of those. What would be your pleasure there?
Motion to accept.
Second. We have a motion, Mr. Wilson, a second, Mr. Strunk. Any further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Watching yourself on TV?
No, I'm sure.
All right, next item then will be our old business. I think we have today the testing unit bid acceptance. You got that, Mr. Price, from the Fire Commission?
Yes, Stacy gave it to me today and said the Fire Commission voted after the review. They budgeted for it when they budgeted with that surplus money to purchase this. And then they asked court to vote for us to advertise it and to accept bids. And then we accepted this bid under review. And Stacy brought this to me today and said they voted to purchase this testing unit.
Okay.
Now, one of the questions when I was up in Frankfurt last week, just to put this out there, I talked to our insurance director about this testing equipment, about the liability of having this testing equipment versus doing letting a third party do the test. He said that our insurance company would cover it, but due to liability reasons and workman's comp reasons, he probably suggests to let the third party do the testing. Just want to put that out there.
Well, what does,
I thought the Fire Commission already voted to.
Stacy, you here? Would you like to come up and address this? I mean, you all.
They had
Something you want
budgeted
us to
money
do or
and
not?
set aside to buy that, and that was one of my concerns before we ever proceeded with this, and I talked to Martin about
Stacy and I
that.
talked about it, and then the folks from the city came over and talked about it, and Stacy had one view. He had the view that you heard last week.
Yeah, I
and-
actually talked to the insurance
And the
company
city
themselves.
folks
Yeah.
had another view. They thought it'd be better off to go ahead and purchase it. My understanding was the Fire Commission voted to do it, so, back then.
Well, that was before we had the information from the insurance company, so I just wanted to put that out there. They said if, God forbid, if somebody got hurt doing these tests, that it could really hurt us as far as workman's comp and liability. But they said they would cover it, whatever we want to do.
Is that KCO you were talking to?
Yes.
KCO?
Well, we have our advisory committee there, and you all do want to go forward with that. I don't know, we'll ask for a motion if that's what you want to do.
That's, the Fire Commission voted to buy it, but that was, and like I said, I'd spoke to Martin about the
Yeah,
insurance
he did.
liability just for the county's purpose, because I wanted to make sure everything would be good with the insurance company before we did make a purchase on that item. So, that's up to you all.
What would be the pleasure of the court? Would you all want to accept that or no?
Should we have them look at it again with this information?
Only thing
I don't know,
Well, the only thing I say is, Stacy, I wish you'd have said that to me, and I would have said taking it off the agenda, and we wouldn't have wasted time.
Well, you had two different things going on. You had the Fire Commission voting to do it.
I remember you made the motion to buy it, right?
I made a motion to bid it out.
Bid it, okay.
I think the main issue is not whether, the main issue would be, is there coverage if something did go wrong?
Yes, there's
And
coverage.
There is coverage. Now, do
coverage.
you want to take on that possibility, of something going wrong.
What's the difference in the cost savings that we'll see doing it ourselves versus
If-
third party?
From my understanding, and I guess Stacy would tell you, the money we're gonna spend on this, first, the unit only comes with a 1-year warranty, and we can have over 500 tests done with the money from itself if we,
14, if you did 30 trucks a year versus what we're paying for that, at 250, it's gonna be like 14 years before, 14.71 years actually, before we get over the 108.
And if I remember correctly, the reason for this was there was a regulating committee out there that was pushing for all fire departments to have,
it was, from what I understand,
Self-testing?
it wasn't a mandatory regulation, it was a,
We had a pump test trailer over at the training center that we'd been using. This was just more of an upgraded thing. You can have a third party come in and do testing. It's less than $200. Their main thing was every time an engine's worked on, that it has to be pump tested according to NFPA standards before it's put back into service, which would just take a while to get somebody to come down and do that. That truck would be out of service for a while, but every truck's supposed to be pump tested yearly, so
Yearly or after they're serviced.
after
right.
they're serviced,
Yeah.
if the engine's worked on, or the pump.
sounds to me like we're mixed here. I mean, you've got the fire commission as a whole says go, and you two are saying no, don't do it, so let's table it, would be my suggestion.
Well, anything you do, I mean, everybody understands this, anything you do and take on responsibility for, you're gonna have potential liability. So it's not, other than if you do contract something out to a third party. So anytime the county says we're gonna do X, there's a liability issue potentially. The main thing is, it's covered, which is why you buy insurance. But
yeah,
if
he
you- if
said,
you
he
can-
said it was covered, but his suggestion is that we don't take on this liability.
Well, not to be, looking at it from the flip side, insurance companies don't like to pay claims, so, you know,
Right. I mean,
if
workman's
they can
comp
push
claims
something
and
to
all
a
that.
third
How
party, they
old is,
Increased premiums
how old is
either.
the testing?
The
No,
other
the one we
units
have
that
now.
we use,
Yes, the one you have now.
it's been there, do you remember how long, Tiger, that you bought that back? We purchased it off a company that went out of business.
Frank's behind you.
I thought Frank wasn't here. That's Frank's his opinion.
So,
well, you're not gonna use it anymore though, right?
well, they've been using, we've got stuff over at a pump tester truck with now.
Yeah, but you're right back to the liability
Yeah.
questions again then.
Yeah.
Frank, have you been the one doing the testing in the past? What are your thoughts on what we're discussing here?
I'm a lot pickier than third party is. So, I mean, something the third party passes, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Just me.
Only thing I'm saying is, when we met with Norman Rutherford, and at that time, the treasurer, they gave us a budget on the items that they wanted us to buy. And they said whether it's third-party testing or we do the testing ourselves, the liability goes back on the county regardless. It doesn't change one thing. And the only thing I am suggesting to the fire commission and to anyone that's associated with it, if there's something on that budget that you all are not wanting us to spend the effort and time advertising and submitting and spending the resources on doing that, because we want to get the best for our first responders. If it's $180,000 protected, for example, Tiger Robinson's life better as a first responder, I'm all in, period.
I'm just bringing up the information that I received. I was asked to look at it, and I looked at it.
What is the general, and this is way out of my wheelhouse, guys, what is the general life expectancy of this piece of equipment?
What'd you say you drove?
It's
about
got a
14
one-year
years?
warranty on it.
It's
what
got one-year warranty,
And
but
then some of the parts has got a
what do you
10-year,
think?
which is a hoses,
Either
but
one, Frank, what do you think the general life expectancy?
The only maintenance, you gotta calibrate your gauges and stuff every year. poly tank, it's probably got a lifetime warranty on the tank. There'll just be some equipment you just have to maintenance.
So this is gonna last forever?
It'll last a while, yeah. I don't really.
I mean, my question is, like I told you earlier, is it gonna last over 15 years? Because if it doesn't, then,
I would think.
then it's just as, of course, I look at money. And,
They may test more than once if, if it's serviced more regular, so.
Does every county own one of these tanks?
Nobody, the only other people that own one of these is a third party that comes in and does pump testing for you. Other than that, no individual fire commissioner, anybody, I don't even think state fire commission owns one, do they?
What prompted the fire commission to go down this path?
I can tell you,
There was the equipment committee, the people that was on the equipment committee decided that we needed a new pump test trailer and looked at this one and got a price. And I kind of got prices on them, and then that was bid out. That's when I come to you and ask you about just the liability. So then they advertised for a bid. We took it back. The bids was turned in. So after me and you talked, this is when they done the bid process. I just wanted to get the liability issue before we went that far. So, and then the bids come in.
I have another question.
What if, go ahead, Mark.
If we do purchase this piece of equipment, who would be operating this piece of equipment? Would it be
That would
Frank
be the
and his
maintenance.
mechanics only? No other fire department, no individual fire department can have access to this trailer? It would have to go specifically through your, it can't go out to any
Won't you come to the
fire
microphone,
department.
Frank?
It cannot be sent out to any fire department. They have to bring the trucks to you to be tested, and it's
and
your
it's county
responsibility.
only, county-owned trucks only.
It
Yeah,
would be
that's-
your
in the past, That's the way
responsibility.
it's been ran, but the fire departments, some of the fire departments themselves have used it.
Right,
The
but,
current one we've had.
but with this new one, I think it should only be operated by you or one of your mechanics who will be trained to operate this thing, and it shouldn't be lent out to any fire department. It should stay at the fire commission.
Well, there'll be a guy with the city that's gonna be trained with us on it.
Well, I don't think that trailer needs to go anywhere besides, stays at the fire
It
commission.
doesn't matter to me, whatever
Because
you all.
liability purposes, if it goes to the city, somebody gets hurt on it, if the city person if the city fire department is doing pump testing with a county piece of equipment and something happens, who's liable, the county or the city?
It's gonna be us.
It'd be us.
Well, you've got all kinds of issues. I mean,
Yeah.
if a hose blows off of it and there's a problem with the hose, then the company made the hose is liable. I mean,
But I'm just
main
saying,
thing is it covered? That's right.
it's covered, but my question is, that's why I said only county employees should be operating this because of the fact that
Well,
if the city takes it and the firefighter uses it, it's our equipment, and if they get hurt, we're liable.
if
gotta
they're,
keep
if
in
they're
mind,
the
too-
ones, if they're the ones that did the test, they used it to do the test, then if the person who did the test was negligent in how they did it, and that was a city person, then I don't see any liability on the county. But again, it's more complicated than that. It's not as
Right,
black
that's
and
why,
white.
that's why I think it needs to stay with the county.
This is
The
like
county-
what Dan said too. This is all about protecting lives and making it
Right.
safer. And it doesn't matter if it's city or county, they're part of the county and they're firefighters and we want to protect them too. And if they're trained to use it, why can't they use it? And if
It
we're
just
covered.
falls back on our liability and
Not
the county
necessarily.
as a whole, and I'm not looking at the county, I'm looking at the county as a whole in this picture.
Frank, what's the
Liability.
possibility of you testing the city being a part of that?
The thing about it is, it's just time consuming, and it's just, we really don't have enough people to do that. So anytime the fire departments can help, that helps us. Because it's just time consuming.
As long as the person that's testing is trained in it, I don't see
If I
what
loan
the
my
problem is.
car to you and you go out and run over somebody, my insurance may wind up having to pay part of it, but if you've got insurance, you're gonna have to pay first. So if some other legal entity is doing the testing with the equipment and they're negligent, their insurance would typically be primary on coverage. The
Mayor
county
Keck,
would
do y'all
be
have
the other
insurance at the city?
Yep, a lot of
Good to have you with us today, by the way.
I just want to make sure that the county as a whole, if we do this, is taken care of.
I
I
think,
don't want to see us end up
Question
paying out a
is-
lot of money for,
not really the liability, because like you said, it's covered no matter what. Do they need it or do they not?
That's the question.
That's the question. I mean, will it pay for itself? It take, like Joan said, take 14 years,
.71.
.71 to even get close to paying for it. So what, is it needed or not?
There'd probably be less liability with a new piece of equipment than what they're using now. And if we don't buy it, they're still gonna use this old one, I'm sure.
That's right.
Yeah, so
If you do, if you do vote to buy the pump test trailer, that we'll have to pick it up, because it's not delivery fee included with that. And then there's a hands-on training at the factory for whoever goes out there for that. And then, of course, Frank, whoever else is gonna be doing it has to go, they'll have to go to a pump test school to be certified to test and perform the test on the trucks also.
I thought it was an either or. Either you're using a third party or you're buying this one. I didn't think you were gonna still keep the old one in service. That's a horrible liability issue if you're gonna talk about liability.
My understanding in talking to Frank, this is how the process works. They get the tanks, the trucks tested every so often by whatever that law is, okay? And that's good for a year. Well, if something happens to that truck and it comes in for whatever it is, they don't have it tested again. So we don't know when it comes in for mechanical work if it tests properly or not. And this, in talking to Frank, he said that, every time that the pieces, the fire commissions, or whatever equipment comes in, they will test it before it leaves, regardless whether it's an oil change or anything, they'll be able to test it every time. Because outside the third party, they can't, as Stacy said, it's hard to get them to come back at a certain time as they're needed. And that truck, if it's from Mount Victor, White Lily, or Fallbush, or wherever, it has to sit out of service until that third party can come back and test it.
So if they've got this, they can test it then, and truck will be back in service.
Yes. And Frank has been testing it with an older piece of equipment currently when they came in, because to make sure that we get our equipment back to the fire departments. And with this piece of equipment, it makes sure that what they're getting back is much safer and more efficient every time they bring it in regardless.
is there a reason why no other fire department has a piece of this equipment? And just
Expensive.
us?
Probably that $180,000 price tag.
107,000.
108,000 basically.
How often are they gonna have to be recertified, and what kind of expenses are we gonna have for recertification and all that? Do we have to pay for travel and the schooling and all that also?
To send them pump school, you would, which it's in Florida, however many people you send to get,
I wanna be
be
certified.
certified to do the pump test. And that's once every 5 years, I think. But I don't know what the cost is for the class or anything. I haven't checked on that.
I don't trust Frank, I'm gonna go.
I'd like a motion that we purchase that equipment.
I second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Turpin and a second by Mr. Weldon. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Can I make
carries.
a suggestion? Now that we've got this ready to purchase, can we go ahead and surplus the other one and get it sold and maybe make some of the money back? Is that something that should be done?
I mean, the other ones, it's a mess. Like, it was all custom built and it is like falling apart. I don't know that there'll be much there.
It'd probably be better off just.
Well,
put
we're
the
gonna have to,
trailer-
we need to surplus it
we'd put
anyway,
the
then to
trailer in
junk
the
it.
Surplus or something.
Yeah,
Next surplus sale we had probably
If
be the
it's a
best.
liability,
I
I'd
mean,
take it apart
I mean,
and surplus what
it's not
parts.
usable now because it's
Pretty much a part right
mess.
now.
well, then it needs to be surplused anyway because we're paying insurance on something that is useless to us, so.
Pieces and parts.
So we need to go
instead
ahead
of
and make a
whole-
motion to
We
surplus.
need to surplus it, and I mean, whether it be junk it or to sell it, but it does need to be surplused.
I make a motion that we surplus the old one.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Ranshaw, and a second by Mr. Strunk. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Stacy, since we're here, you want to ask permission to surplus this other piece of equipment?
Yeah, while I'm here, if you want to go ahead. The SRT is trading in a 2018 Ford Explorer for another vehicle, so they asked to surplus the Ford Explorer.
Motion surplus.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wielden, second by Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Nah.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. All right, next then, we have our franchise agreement with Charter Communications. We've had a couple attempts at this, and I believe we've got this to a point where it's agreeable. Do you have any questions? Or if you don't, we'd entertain a motion to approve this franchise agreement.
I was asked to, on paragraph 15, I was asked at the last meeting to, because of the way it's written, it says if at any time Kentucky laws change, Carla Combs is here with Charter. That law has been changed a couple of years ago. I think the Supreme Court ruled that the county could in fact collect their own franchise fees. So if you want to go down that road, and she can, if not today, she can come in and administratively fill you guys in, or you in on what.
Does anybody have a question for Ms. Combs while she's here, or we can?
I do.
Carla, would you like to come to the microphone, please?
Is there, I got 3 questions. First of all, is there a reason why we have to go out 7 years on this contract?
The charter, we did attempt, the initial proposed term was a 10-year with a 5-year renewal, automatic renewal. So we worked it down to where we could do a 7-year. Charter prefers not to go under 7 years. First of all, federal law requires us to give a notice 36 months before the franchise expires. So that, that just gives us a little bit more time to operate under the franchise, feel more comfortable under the franchise, upgrade systems, that type of stuff. But they just refuse to go under 7 years. So we have gone down about 8 years from what we proposed.
Okay. In our county, I want to try to word this right. We have farmers and other people out in a rural area that can't get internet to operate businesses and stuff like that. This agreement doesn't show any plans to try to expand your services out to these areas. And I know there's federal grant money and state money where they're trying to get rural coverage for internet services.
Well, the franchise is for cable services only. It has nothing to do with internet.
Okay, so is there another separate agreement?
No, we are not required to have a franchise for internet. And I too am one of those people who live out in rural Pulaski County that does not have internet. I am on slow-mo Windstream service. So I do totally understand with that, where they're coming from. But yeah, this is only for cable services. The FCC ruled back, I think it was in 2004, maybe, give or take a couple of years, that internet is not a cable service. So this is only for, now as far as building out, we do continually look at areas, where they're building out. Trust me, every time our construction team is in our office, when they see me coming, they know exactly what I want and they laugh at me. So, because we have, like any business, we have to look at a return on investment as well. And it's not, it used to be just as easy as running a coax. It's not that anymore. It's become more complex. And I wish we could, but we do. If we know that they're building out, if they, for example, if a subdivision, which I know there won't be, but there's a subdivision coming in down my road, they will be more than glad to come, look at it, and see if it's feasible and look at a return on investment on that. But now I do know they're trying to pass a law right now to where there is make grant money available for, get some type of incentive or a grant to where cable operators or, other operators can get money to help build out, to unserved and underserved areas. So they are looking at that, we have our lobbyists and our folks up in Frankfurt right now talking to people, just trying to, see what we can do, because we're the only state in this area. Everyone around us has an incentive or a grant to help, providers build out. So
There's so many people in this county that don't have access to this service. And I know there's money out there, the federal government's put a lot out there, and this Kentucky Water Program and stuff like that. I mean, is there any current plans from Spectrum to move forward with installing any over the next couple of years?
Well, as far as building out, I can't
Yeah.
say yes or no, because honestly, I did not get with construction before I came here to see what plans, again, if there is a need, if we see, as I said, if subdivisions coming in, we're more than glad to look at it, or if there's a home, or if there's a road that has, ample homes down it without, big gap, quarter mile between homes, wherever, we're more than glad to look at that and see, if it's feasible to build out and, try to get them access. We do understand how important internet is. Trust me, I do. When I try to watch Netflix and it just sits there and spins and spins and spins. So I do understand. But, and something else at Charter, Charter is more than glad, if the county that's something that the county's interested in partnering with us on, we'll be glad to sit down and talk to the county. I know I have one of my ad districts. I cover not the whole state, but I cover from anywhere from Ashland to Western Kentucky. And, so, we are talking, trying to schedule a time to sit down to talk to one of our ad districts to, see what we can do about partnering with them. Another thing that Charter did was last year we went through our fixed wireless project. We did a trial run. We put a fixed wireless antenna on top of the Fairfield Inn down up at exit 115. And so we did, and it covers a 5-mile radius. They have, that's something that they did roll out in North Carolina last year. They're looking to do that hopefully by the end of the year, because I've already picked the spot where my antenna needs to go to reach me. And I've already told people, I'm like, here's where it goes. So, so that is something that they're also looking at, to try to do and, make broadband available to customers, or potential customers. So, we do look at that. It's just sometimes and I understand there's grants and stuff, but we don't always qualify for those
I'm just looking
either.
out for
Oh, absolutely.
the farmers and the business owners
Oh,
and the residents
exactly.
out in my farthest area. I got Mount Victory and White Lily and
You have
and
down
all
Rush
that.
Branch.
Huh?
You have Rush Branch.
Yeah.
So you're my magistrate. Okay, so I
I'm
do
just-
understand where you're coming
I just want
from.
to look out for everybody's interests
Absolutely.
as a county as a whole, so.
Absolutely, I understand, and I do go down through White Lily and all that stuff. So I know where you're coming from.
And that's one reason too, Mark, that we did this recent study to maybe position towers out there that we could help private enterprise be able to affordably serve these underserved areas, because it comes down to it's a business decision. And if there's no profits, they're not going to do it. If the county can somehow or another partner to make it feasible for these smaller companies or the larger companies like Charter to put fixed wireless in place to reach these homes, that's what we have to decide as a court. Is that a service that we need to provide as a county, or is that something we just sit back and wait until it does become financially feasible? And if we sit back and wait, we get further behind from the rest of the areas in the country that are not
And then
facing
sometimes-
these same issues as rural Kentucky.
I mean, we do have to look at it from a budget standpoint.
Absolutely. It's not an easy answer, or we'd already have it. That's the
One other
reality.
question. Can you go into more detail about the franchise fee?
Sure. So back in, and I'm not sure how long y'all have been in place. I just moved down here like a year and a half ago from Madison County. So I'm glad to be a Pulaski County in now. But, so back in 2006, if some of you may recall, they did away with franchise fees. They did state modernization tax reform. They did away with it. Cities and counties had to submit information to the state showing how much they collected in franchise fees, and then they were held harmless for that. And the county, according to the numbers that we've received from the Department of Revenue, as well as the numbers we've received from our tax department, so the county probably gets about $12,280, and that's just a guesstimate amount from what the numbers we've received every month. Now, some cities went together. They sued the Department of Revenue and said, this is unlawful, you're taking away our rights. And so the Supreme Court heard it, and they said, now cities and counties have a choice. They could choose to collect franchise fees, if it benefits them. It does benefit some counties, like it would Pulaski County. There's some that does not benefit, it would hurt them. So it's kind of left up to the county or the city, either one. So now, what has to happen is, in order to start doing that, pass the franchise agreement. It has that language in there which the proposed one does. And then you submit that along with a letter and a copy of the minutes of the meeting. And I've got all this in an email that I can send back around, to the Department of Revenue. And once that happens, then send me a copy, just an email copy is fine. And then I have paperwork to do on our end because our finance department, tax department has legwork they need to do. It takes about 90 days to get this enacted. Once it's enacted, the county will then receive an annual check. So the monthly check will go away, but then the county will receive an annual check. So it'll take a little over a year to get another check, but you'll get one. The numbers, and these are going by the numbers that we've been given, so I can't say these are to the dime, even to the quarter maybe, but these are, I've been given the numbers that, the county gets about 147 plus in excise tax. According to the numbers from that our tax department ran, the county could be getting about 278 plus. And so that's a nice little jump, about 88.9%.
So we need to make a motion to allow you to pursue,
Well, you just need to accept you just need to pass the
sign this
franchise
agreement.
agreement.
so
That's
it's
it.
in here
Mhm.
already?
It's
so
already
we
in there,
don't have
section
to-
6.
We don't have to worry about, and then we'll proceed
Yep.
with trying to get the additional money.
Exactly. It's just a matter of passing that it's in section 15 of the proposed agreement. And it's just a matter of getting this passed and then just doing this legwork to send the paperwork to Frankfurt and sending me a copy. And then customers will see no difference in their bills. Their bills will still be, I'm not saying the rates won't go up or specials won't run out. That's something that's a little different. But as far as the taxes go, they will see no difference in their bills.
With the check, you said it's an annual check, does it, and it comes once a year?
Comes once a year to the county.
Is it at a specific time?
It will be, so let's say, and let me just throw some dates out
Please.
there. Okay, so this is, we'll just say.
Let's say it's March.
March, yeah, we'll just say March 31st. So by June of next year, you should receive a check.
Okay,
So it gives us about 90 days to calculate.
Okay.
After the end of the year, it gives about 90 days
Okay.
for everyone to, get their ducks in a row. And
you
get their
never
things
know,
together.
because I didn't know if
yeah.
it would be this budget season or next
It'd be-
budget season. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Is,
you.
Is that something that we can handle going with 1-year check versus engaging?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, if you know you're getting it, it just kind of goes into the budget. Yeah,
Just want to make sure if it
Oh,
was
yes.
feasible that we could wait a year.
sure.
Just the waiting game.
Motion.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Mr. Wilson, a second by Mr. Wilden to approve this franchise agreement. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Nah.
Any opposed? Thank you for all your work on this,
Thank you.
Carl.
Oh, no, thank you all for
Thank
working with
you.
me. And I'm just going to kind of wait it out here. Thank you.
All right, next then, we have a new business, Pulaski County Multi-Unit Senior Housing Project. If you remember, a few months ago, we came to you on behalf of Lake Cumberland Housing Agency to apply for a grant to purchase, or I'm sorry, they were going to purchase some units here in Pulaski County. And the grant for $1 million was to refurbish these units and turn them into senior assisted living, I think, multi-unit senior housing, which is going to basically prolong the time that some of these seniors would ultimately have to go to the nursing homes or, state care. So it's going to make this more feasible for them to live at home for longer periods of time. We are pretty much a pilot program. You all approved us to be a pass-through agent for that grant. Now, this is just paperwork that we need to sign because anytime we receive federal funds, we have to comply with their policies, and they want to make sure our policies line up, and we do have these in our personnel policies, our administrative code, where it talks about drug-free workplace and non-discriminatory actions, fair housing, things like that. Just want to make sure that we're complying. So these papers you've got are required to do business with the federal government. So I just need your permission to sign saying we do comply.
All right, in one motion.
Can we do all that in one motion, Mark? Is this-
As long as you reflect it in the notes or in the minutes.
Identified in the minutes.
Yeah, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items listed in the agenda. The Title 6 Assurance Plan, the Fair Housing Resolution, the No Displacement Assurance Statement, the Conflict of Interest Assurance Statement, and the Drug-Free Policy Assurance Statement.
Have you looked at all these? And is there any liability to the county?
Always liability when you do something.
Thought we went through that.
I mean, it's,
It is what it is.
No financial obligation at all, am I correct?
Just-
That's all I care about.
We had that stricken from the previous request. They wanted us to.
They wanted us to say that we'd take any overflow, so it's
The
gone.
housing agency.
That's
will-
what I wanted to
will
make
take that
sure
on.
of.
Yeah.
Second.
Have a motion, Mr. Wilden, second, Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next, then, I've got two library board appointments. These terms have expired. Want to recommend first Jerry Claunch for a 4-year term to serve on the Pulaski County Public Library Board of Trustees.
you need a
Motion.
I need a motion. Yeah.
Second.
So motion by Mr. Turpin, second Mr. Ranshaw. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And then Adam Richardson was filling a partial term, and it has expired, so I would like to reappoint him for a 4-year term. To the motion, Mr. Ranshaw,
Second.
second Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we have, next would be a memorandum of understanding between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and site provider. Basically what this is they hold traffic court here in our, traffic school here in our courtroom. And basically this is a understanding that we will let them do that, and we will provide certain responsibilities you see there to make sure that happens. It's nothing new. It's what we've done for years with state traffic school. So we just need to be able to sign this memorandum of understanding.
So no changes to it from previous years?
Not that I'm aware of, Martha didn't point out, but I just know that it's pretty typical. Just basically, we've got a classroom here that they use, and when they want to make sure that we're not, that they have no ADA problems getting in here, and that they have access to computers and networks to use their equipment.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Ranshaw. Second, Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next in will be our department reports. Eugene, you have anything today for us?
What I've got today is a road work request and 3,000 ton of rock for March.
We'll go ahead and ask for a motion for the rock, that's 3,000 ton of rock.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Wilson, and second, Mr. Strunk. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next, then we have a speed limit sign, it looks like on Second District. Is there any other?
There was one more.
One and a fourth, looks like. So first, we have Country Lane in the Second District. Need a motion to set a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Ranshaw, and a second, Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we have on Parky Ridge Road in the 4th District, looks like we have a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit to set.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Ranshaw, and a second. Is that Mr. Turpin?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we would entertain a motion to accept the rest of the road work request.
Before we do that, on the 3rd district, on the 3rd line, I have a bridge needs repaired. I want to strike that till a later date. I'm going to have it checked out first.
Which road is that?
Charles Lester Road on 3rd district.
You want the other stuff,
I
but
want that.
You'll strike the whole?
No,
Trees cut
this
back.
bridge needs repaired, strike it off.
You got that, Alicia? So we've got you have a motion with changes?
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Who did I hear? Second, Mr. Turpin.
Second.
Okay, I thought that's who it was. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Uh-huh.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Next then, we have an appointment for fiscal court clerk. Linda, you don't need to come up unless you want to, but I was just, we've been having, Alicia Roberts has been doing our court reporting, and it's our option as a court to designate a court clerk, I'm sorry, a fiscal court clerk. So I'd like to recommend that we officially hire Alicia to do that for us, and the pay on that is $50 per court meeting.
Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Ranshaw and a second by Mr. Wielden. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Nah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alicia, this is where you jump up and say, I'm opposed, if you,
Oh. Yeah, I oppose.
Nay.
Too late.
Nay.
Sorry.
we thank you. You've been very faithful in this role and done a very good job for us, so appreciate you. Next then will be a 911 call center. I guess, Aaron, you want to request an advertisement?
We're gonna have some retirements coming up, or one retirement coming up. It's not gonna be till August, so I'd like to go ahead and get a part-time dispatcher hired so we can at least have some help there whenever she does retire. And also our current part-time, she's actually took a full-time job, so she's not available to work as much. So I'd like to ask permission to advertise for a part-time dispatcher position.
Motion.
Second. A motion by Mr. Ranshaw and a second by Mr. Strunk. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Brings us to our treasurer. Joan has a couple items for us here.
Does. The first item I have would be the bill list.
You all have received a copy of the bill list. Any questions, or what would be your pleasure?
I like it because it's rather small.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Master Strunk, second by Master Wilson. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Oh, did you say all in favor?
Motion
Did you go
carries,
with it?
yes.
Okay. I was waiting for that. The second item I have is our budget transfers. And as you know, those are basically housekeeping to keep all line items whole.
Motion.
Second. Question.
I'd be disappointed if not, Mark.
Sorry. So this is just moving money out of excessive funds into these accounts, or are we moving money from like the general fund, the jail fund?
No.
fire
This
fund?
is all interfund transfers.
So these are just
It-
inter-fund transfer, we're not
Correct.
switching from fund to fund?
No.
We have a motion by Mr. Strunk and a second by Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
I do believe that's all I have, except that it's, after last week was budget workshop, so now the fun begins for the year.
We don't have any citizens' comments. Do you all have anything you'd like to?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss real estate.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Ranshaw, and a second by Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Any opposed? All right, folks, if you'll give us a few minutes, this will be all of our regular business unless we decide to come out and have business afterwards, but you're welcome to stay if you'd like, or we'll try to be done as soon as possible. Regular session.
I'm not.
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Ranshaw. Second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Turpin. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll report that we met in executive session. No action was taken in executive session. But we have,
I have a motion to make.
we'd like to read a motion. Okay.
Motion to sell property known as Gardner Property off Pine Hill and Barnesburg Road to Speda for economic development for the purchase price of $1,186,900. Funds from sale is to be placed in a separate account and used to pay down bond to which property was originally purchased.
Did that include our earnest money?
It's just the sales price.
Just the sales price of the property.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Ranchon and a second by Mr. Turpin. Do we have any further discussion on this?
That number should have included the earnest money.
I think that's what we actually wrote the check for.
Minus so the earnest money wasn't included in that amount. What was the earnest money?
10? But I think that 186, I can't remember. Do you remember? Does anybody? I don't, yeah, if it's not in front of me, I can't remember my name.
I think the discussions that have been had was for whatever the purchase price was, so the earnest money should have been included in that purchase price, so that number should be up by $10,000.
Okay, so I make a motion that.
Could he just make the motion as entire purchase
Yeah. Just
Okay.
amend your motion.
So I want to amend the motion that we sell the Garner property to Speda for the total purchase price that the county paid for it, and that money to go into a separate account to pay down the bond.
Have a new motion? Do we have a?
Is it to pay down or just pay that?
Pay toward the bond.
Yeah, it won't cover the whole
Bond
bond, but it will help keep the bond budget neutral.
How does it need to be worded, Martin?
Well, the money won't be paid directly toward the bond, will it?
No,
It's-
unless it's possible to pay the
Yeah, I don't
bond
think
down
it
by that
is.
much money, but
I
if
don't
not.
think it is, so I
If
think
not, that money would go in an account and help us make the payment
I can
for the
check
bond.
with
interest to be
our,
used.
I can check with our bonding agency to see if we can just go ahead and,
You can use that to reduce
to reduce the,
if not, then the interest off of the money would be used to pay toward the bond
Yeah,
payments.
it would keep the bond, as we initially put it, we wanted it budget neutral. This would keep that as budget neutral. But have we received all the money from the bond?
right, the money from the bonds stays in an account until we draw on
Okay,
it.
because I know according to what the budget says, we've received about 3 million of it now.
Probably. Maybe, I don't know if it's that much, but I know at least probably 2, or close to 2. I'm not real sure.
So we have an amended motion. Did we get a second to that?
Second.
Second, Mr. Turpin. Any
Yes.
further discussion?
Yeah, just for clarification, it doesn't have to go in the notes, because his amended motion said whatever the purchase price was. So it was 5,000 down, earnest money instead of 10. I've got the option here I'm looking at. All right, that's it.
We just put it down as
We
whatever the
paid 2
purchase
different
price.
times.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
This is the one.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor?
This is
Any
one that
opposed?
goes September 28th.
Thank you all.